I'm trying a few different things today. Number one is I've got some brand new LED lights. So I've been using sort of some photography lights up until this point, but I decided I was going to go up to these LED panels, and I'm sort of playing around with the intensity at the moment. So I will get there eventually. You can probably see them in my glasses. The second thing I'm going to try that's different is the normal mailbag sessions are sort of a Q&A sort of style, which is you ask me a question, I give you an answer. But the last couple of days, I have been corresponding with a tuber, and I'm not going to use his name, but I thought it'd be interesting to see if we could do this as a case study of how my logical thinking in my head works in terms of solving a problem. So, before we get going, usual parish notices. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and want to do so, please hit that subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when I publish new content to the channel, please hit that bell icon. If you want to support the video production on the channel, head over to Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/themusictechguy. With a bit of luck, the address should be appearing down here. Okay, but the normal parish notice is over and done with. Let's see how this works. Give me some feedback on the channel if you think it doesn't work very well, and I won't do it again. If you think it works quite well, then maybe I'll find another case study and try and do it again. So, Mr. Tuber writes, "Hi, I'm looking for some help. I've just purchased a Roland MX-1 and I want to use Ableton. I also want to integrate my Behringer TD3 and my tablet perhaps. I'm really struggling on getting it all up and in sync." Smiley confused face. "Any help and advice would be greatly appreciated. P.S. I love your vids." Thought I was going to throw that in. So, first thing is you've got an MX-1, which is sort of the centre of the Roland boutique universe, if you like. And they have published a software pack that allows you to integrate with Ableton a lot better than any of the other DAWs. But you can integrate it with Logic and Pro Tools, although I'm not quite sure why you want to integrate it with Pro Tools. But there are a number of Cubase as well. As I know people have got it integrated with Cubase. But the first thing to realise about the MX-1 is it's really a performance tool. Although it has these other features, it's really aimed at performance. So, as you know, my studio is in storage at the moment. So I have written back and said, unfortunately, my MX-1 is in storage, so I can't demonstrate this, which is annoying actually, because I could probably demonstrate it far easier than I can write it. Here's how I would start. Which device is going to be the master clock? So first of all, you've got to decide where is your clock source coming from. So is your clock source going to come from your computer? Is the clock source going to come from the MX-1, or is the clock source going to come from the TD3? All three of those devices will generate a clock signal. You just have to decide which one of those devices is going to be your master clock signal, and then you have to go through and set all the other devices effectively as a slave to where that's coming from. In reality, you have two choices in that in the equipment that you shared with me. It's either going to be the MX-1, it's going to be Ableton. And the reason for that is that those two seem like the logical points to have the master clock source. Ableton because you're using it as your DAW, and the MX-1 because it has a very easy way of controlling the whole environment from one effectively one pot that the environment has. Personally, I would probably pick Ableton. The reason will become clear in a minute. How do you intend to distribute the clock to the devices? Now, this is another key decision point when you're setting up your environment. Once you've decided what your clock source is, you've got to work out how do you get that clock source onto all the instruments that require the clock source to operate. So, for argument's sake, the TD3 is a bassline, so it's going to need to remain in sync with whatever you've got generating the drum track. Certain synthesizers, for argument's sake, may have arpeggiation, and you want to keep that arpeggiation in sync with the drum machine and the bass line and anything else you've got running. you want to keep whatever's being generated off Ableton in sync. So the first thing, once you've decided on where that clock source is, then you've got to work out how you're going to get the clock source to all the other devices. Are you going to send that clock source via USB, or are you going to send that clock source via MIDI, or have you got another way of delivering the clock source to the end devices, e.g. CV? So you've got to work out all this. This is sort of the logic process that I would go through. Once you've decided what the clock source is, how do you get it to the device? Again, you have two choices, either traditional 5-pin DIN MIDI or USB MIDI for the devices that have been listed. The 5-pin DIN MIDI is an established mechanism, but you have to configure the device in a daisy chain with Ableton at the head of the chain. This will send the clock to all devices. So if you put Ableton at the beginning of the chain, and there should be a diagram that will be appearing up here. If you put Ableton at the beginning of the chain, then you can daisy chain out the clock source to all the other devices. This will send the clock to all the other devices. The issue with the 5-pin DIN is that getting note data back to Ableton for recording, it can be easy to create a circular connection. This is very common in traditional MIDI, is that you can create a circular connection. USB MIDI, on the other hand, allows bidirectional MIDI. So USB is a sort of step on, even though it's still using MIDI version 1 as the standard protocol. It still allows you to separate the conversation going in both directions. So you would struggle to create a circular connection using USB MIDI, just by the nature of how it's implemented. And you connect all the devices directly to the computer hosting Ableton. So basically what I'm saying here is I think USB is probably the better way to go for the devices that have been given to me, in that the MIDI signals will be sent out via USB to the TD3, to the MX-1 and to the tablet that has been referenced here. This is the pincher. How do you want to get the audio into Ableton? So now you've decided how you're going to get the clock source and the MIDI data flowing between the two. Now you've got to work out how you're going to get your audio back into Ableton to be able to record it in your DAW. So, options. You could use an audio interface like one of Focusrite Scarlett devices, if you have one of those. I'm not saying Focusrite is the only mechanism here, but Focusrite is the one I have in my studio, so I'm going to plug it. But, to be honest, why would you bother? You've got an MX-1. An MX-1 is an audio interface. It's got a DNA converter on it. Why not use the MX-1? So, on the basis that you've got an MX-1, the MX-1 is going to be your audio source back into the computer for the devices that can't send audio data via the USB interface. So, personally, if I was going to play audio in, I would use the USB interface to the TD3, play the tablet into one or two of the MX-1 audio interfaces, so effectively take an audio out of the tablet and play it into the MX-1, and use the MX-1's USB to deliver it to Ableton. So effectively, the TD3 goes directly into the computer using the USB interface for audio, which it should be able to do because that's what it says on the specs. And you're going to use the MX-1 to transfer audio data off the tablet, which I doubt is going to go up the MIDI channel, and transfer that into your Ableton session. Hope this gives you some direction. Let me know. So, what we've basically now got is I've sort of given this particular person some food for thought on how he needs to set up his environment and told him how I would do it, given the equipment that he's listed to me. So, my tuber correspondent writes back to me. I don't have an audio interface at the moment. I'm using the 5-pin MIDI from the MX-1, but was hoping to send MIDI from Ableton to the TD3, etc., and use the effects and stuff from the MX-1. I can get the set TD3 up for syncing, but it's just configuring it all. What method would be possible? Connect laptop stroke Ableton to MX-1 USB, MIDI out from the MX-1 to the TD3, 5-pin DIN MIDI cable, programming etc. on my laptop, Ableton to trigger and use the effects from the MX-1, use the audio out from the MX-1. Many thanks for getting back to me. You're really helpful and I greatly appreciate this. So effectively what he's saying is that he is going to not connect the TD3 up to the computer, but he wants to connect the TD3 up to the MX-1 using a MIDI cable. Now, my opinion on this is that's probably not right. That's not the thing to do. And there'll be a diagram appearing here in a sec. The wrinkle with this proposal is the MX-1 sends audio to the computer dry. So up in this corner here is going to be a circuit diagram. Now, for many people, it probably won't mean an awful lot. But effectively, this is the circuit diagram or the audio diagram that Roland has now issued. And I think they've been forced to issue for the MX-1 because of the amount of confusion people have had over the MX-1 and the ability to actually record the effects onto the audio channel that you are sending down to Ableton or to your DAW. Now, many people, when they're recording and playing back on the MX-1, you can add in effects from the MX-1 onto the signal that comes out of the MX-1 and heads off to your PA. The signal that goes off to the computer is sent off pre-effect. And again, if you look at this diagram and study it in detail, you should be able to see where when the MX-1 is operating in mixer mode, it's going straight through the effects. When it's operating in external mode and surface mode, you can see it bypasses the effects. Okay, so that's a problem. And I said, look, refer to this routing diagram that was sent across. PS, the MX-1 is an audio interface and should suffice for your setup. So I'm sort of kind of pointing back to the audio interface here. Again, coming back, so the tubers come back and said, I'm wanting to send audio MIDI from Ableton through the MX-1 and also trigger the TD3 through the MX-1 on our MIDI channel and take all the audio out of the MX-1 to the monitors. So he's now starting to think about how his setup needs to look. And what I've turned around and said, this to me seems easier to set up and manage. And again, a diagram is going to be up here somewhere, which is my proposed configuration to him to say, this is how I think this really needs to look. He's written back and says, yes, that looks okay. Just trying to think, if I have an adapter for my Samsung tablet, or would the normal USB cable that I connect to on the computer do? So again, remember that if you've got a tablet device and you're connecting it via USB between a computer, it's going to be a standard connection. Okay, the USB is going to only send certain things down from the tablet to the computer. It's not set up per se, unless you've got a program running on the tablet, to send audio data backwards and forwards. It will receive MIDI data backwards and forwards, but audio data is another thing. So you need to sort of think about how this is going to work. So I wrote back and said, to be honest, a normal USB cable would probably do the trick, I would have thought. So basically, your standard connection cable should be sufficient to connect the tablet into the environment. Tuba writes back and says, in fact, I don't think I can do that. TD3 has a USB, hasn't got a USB on it. It's just a 5-pin MIDI cable. He had to turn it around. And again, if you look at the diagram, the picture up here, you can see that on the back of a TD3, there are actually an in MIDI sock, which is a standard 5-pin DIN, an out stroke through MIDI socket. So again, I've not got a TD3, but I understand on the TD3 you can configure that either as a through port or an out port. And then right next to them there is a USB connector, so you can connect this into your USB. So he comes back and says, oops, no problem. So hopefully that sort of has my thinking about how do you put your setup together. And that diagram I put up, which I'm putting up again now, shows how the setup probably needs to sit for him to actually be able to send the right data to the right devices and get the audio going to the right places. So that was a case study of how I went through it with this particular person. And hopefully he hasn't come back to me and said it doesn't work. So hopefully he's now got a setup that works. Again, as I said, think about whether this has been useful to just go through the whole logic process of setting up your environment to work in your studio. Till next time, live long and prosper.